It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week from beautiful Juneau, Alaska. Just kidding. From Calabasas, California. And thank you, band. Man, those guys never miss a note. Thank you, fake audience. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a new week. I'm having a bad hair day today, just in case any of you guys were wondering. What can I say? So last week we were doing CUE reviews, and we had, 4, 5, 6 left over, and I felt bad that those people were going to get left out. So this week we're doing CUE review redo. That's my attempt at French. Little known taxi factoid. I took French 101 4 years in a row and flunked it 4 times. It's a true story. I remember the teacher's name though, Mr. Pelican. Anyway, so we have 15 CUES because Bria had you guys submit some extra stuff so we would have a whole show's worth of stuff. And I also want to tell you before we get going, just get the little housekeeping stuff done. Subscribe. Yeah, right there. That's what you want to hit, that thing and subscribe. Share us with your grandma, and don't forget to like us. The sharing is that's become the most important thing. Oh, don't forget the little bell up there. Right there, that little bell, it's somewhere up there. Click the bell and you'll get notifications when other good stuff from us is coming up that you should see. And there was one other thing I wanted to tell you about. The Taxi Road Rally. Can't forget that. I got to tell you guys, seriously, I had the schedule for the rally, for the ballroom stuff. The Road Rally is about 15 to 17 ballroom panels that, in my humble opinion, are always great. And we have about 75 to 90 breakout classes. We have one-to-one mentoring where you get to sit down with the mentor of your choice if you get in line soon enough, because it is first come, first served. And lives have been changed because of those one-to-one mentor situations. People sit down with a publisher, and before you know it, they've got a publishing deal, and whammo or bammo, whatever. Stuff ends up getting in TV shows and movies because they met somebody at the Road Rally, or maybe even at the bar over a beer at the Road Rally. When is it? November 1st through November 4th, 2018. Where is it? Los Angeles, California. Do you need to rent a car and freak out that you have to drive all over our crazy freeways? No. Why? Because it's on Century Boulevard, right outside of the airport, so you can grab a free shuttle. So think about that. You're saving like $40 a day on a rental car. The hotel rooms are awesome. They're reasonably inexpensive for as nice as they are. Hotel food's expensive, but really good at this hotel. And there's a subway across the street or down the block. Anyway, all kinds of great stuff. But the Road Rally, you know what? Lives have been changed. Anybody who is a successful taxi member will tell you that they watch Taxi TV, they go to the Road Rally, they participate in our forums, and they listen to what the screeners have told them. My bad hair is like getting cut off. Anyway, there, now you can see all the bad hair day. So without any further ado, that goes along with Taxi CUE review. Redo, part 2. It's rhyme day. The chat room. I didn't even say hi to you guys. Hello, Gloria, Lamar, Amanda, Vicky, Marion, Ann, Kyle, Adriana, Sherry, Dwayne, Kyle, I can't remember if I said. Anyway, Suze Doyle. Hey, Suze, how are you? Let's buy Michael a hat. No, you've never met anybody in your life that looks worse than a hat than I do. What can I say? I can't even wear a hat on vacation. If I wear a baseball hat, total strangers walk up and laugh at me. It's embarrassing. So we're going to start out. Let's listen to the first CUE. And what we're doing today is we're not voting on stuff. We're just merely listening to CUEs, and I'll give a little quick analysis about what's working, what may not be working, what could be fixed. And you guys are welcome to chime in. It's really good to get your brain thinking about other people's stuff because it makes yours better. So without any further ado, Bria is going to play the first cue, which is called Ballerina. And if you are in the chat room and you want to out yourself, that's okay. I just don't like outing people in case, the feedback is not intense, but, don't want to embarrass anybody because we're a kind-hearted show. So, yeah, if you want to out yourself and go, that's mine, feel free. Here we go. Still writing, be right with you. Hang on, I'm coming back. Tad more. Okay. So the gentleman who submitted that said, I'd love to know if this cuts it for a solo piano cue. And I would say overall, yeah. First of all, as many people commented in the chat room, it was really nicely done. It was a nice melody. It was kind of a fresh melody. Didn't sound like, oh, I've heard that 1,000 times before. It was emotionally kind of contemplative, somebody's going for a walk after something happened and they're considering something, should I stay at home? Should I move out? Should I break up with my boyfriend? Should I not? Should I go to college or become a worthless hippie? Big decisions, life decisions. So it sounds like somebody was debating that stuff. Contemplative, one of my favorite words. I made a note. Good sectional contrast. It was nice. I don't even remember how many bars. Probably around 8 bars with a simple little pattern. And then he brought in a higher register with the right hand and probably went up an octave. And that gave it good sectional contrast. I made a note about recording. Not that there was anything wrong with the recording on this one, but solo piano cues, a lot of people are a little miffed at our screeners sometimes when they don't get a forward, and the screeners will make a comment about the recording and they say, well, I used XYZ software and it's $500 for that piano, blah 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 blah. But there's much more to it than just opening the box, as it were, and playing the piece. There are articulations and things to be considered. I see Bria looking at my ceiling. Yeah, there's an air conditioning. Whenever somebody else's unit goes on, it vibrates one of the metal straps holding up the ceiling. I have to listen to this all day long. It drives me nuts. Anyway, so the thing about, first of all, I can't tell. 90% of the time, I can't tell. I'm an engineer, at least I used to be. I can't tell if stuff is out of a box or a real piano. Sometimes the giveaway for me is hearing piano noise, or sometimes I can hear hammers on strings a little bit. Things like that are kind of a giveaway in a good way. Sometimes you want that stuff. It adds life and authenticity to the piano sound. So just as a general rule of thumb, and I'm not saying that this gentleman is guilty of this, but just gives me the opportunity to lay this on you. And that is, when you are working with a piano that is out of the box, A-box software, it could be a Bosendorfer piano. It could be recorded with, $2,000 Neumann mics. All that said, sometimes it just lacks a little bit of air. It could be that the mics were 2 feet from the strings. And it all depends on the piece you're playing, the dynamics, the octaves, whether you have the sustain pedal down or not, the room you're in, the speed, the tempo at which things are played. All those variables go into how things sound. But something that I've noticed a lot is that there's a lack of air. So when you have if you're using a piano that's software driven, it's not a bad idea to re-amplify and re-mic it. So send it out into a room, stereo panned stereo speakers, and actually open up a couple of stereo microphones and bring that sound from those mics back into a couple other faders and add them back to the original sound that's coming down a wire. Sometimes it'll be a mess. You may create phase problems. Other times you go, wow, that actually sounds like a piano in a room. So just saying, it's not something that's guaranteed to work. Not guaranteed that you'll get it right every time, but it's a trick worth learning and knowing. The only other comment I had about this piece was that I believe that the lower register stuff could have been brought in possibly a little sooner. And at one point I remember thinking, gosh, I wish he was a little more emphatic with the bass notes on this, but then I thought, you don't want those to be overpowering. So I'd have to go back and listen again or hear it perform that way to make an absolute judgment. But overall, this thing is a keeper in, libraries would like it. So there you go. Most important thing was the melody, and that was great. Okay, moving on. And you know what? I'm only halfway done with this. Just saying, I feel a little speedy from this one. I normally don't drink that flavor. It must have a lot of caffeine in it. For the next one is called First New Step. Okay, that one is called First New Step, and you could tell that I missed the ending because the ending didn't end where it felt like it should have ended, right? It just didn't feel like it resolved well at the end, and it was kind of a sneak attack, if you will, which sometimes can work. I don't think it worked all that well in this one. Couple of thoughts. I mean, it certainly was in the ballpark of being a cue. I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, that was terrible. And gentleman, this is a name that could go either way. Whoever the person is that created that piece of music, they are well on their way to nailing cues. Okay, this one though was, how can I say this? I couldn't hum it back to you, which isn't absolutely mandatory for a cue. It's not like it's supposed to be a hit record. But the synth melody on it was really kind of piercing, and it would so distract viewers from the dialogue in something because it's in a register that would compete with the voice, and it would distract you even if it were even in, like an octave down. I think it would still be distracting, and it felt incongruous with the overall theme of the cue. It was like if you heard it at a planetarium, you'd go, I get it, space music. But the cue didn't feel like that. So they didn't work well together, and because of the register and the type of synth sound that was used, it was just plain distracting, and most libraries wouldn't want that because of that. Also, the percussion, which congas, bongos, whatever they were, when that started out, I thought, oh, I get it. This is going to be one of those cues that could be used for like the puppy show or, Box of Kittens, that kind of stuff on Animal Planet. And immediately I thought it was going that way. And then the synth came in and it took me totally out of that mind space. So I think that there are at least 2 or 3 ideas for cues in there, but that the one with the bongo drums should be the one that you pursue, and that I would simplify it and make it a little more accessible, a little less busy, a little less piercy, and work with it from there. So I hope that helps. Okay. Ooh, this sounds interesting. Celtic battle game theme. Nobody would ever guess what this cue is going to sound like, right? We've talked about this with titling your stuff really well. This is maybe a little too descriptive, but I'd rather have it err on the side of a little too descriptive than not descriptive or cryptic. So this is Celtic battle game theme. Okay, where are my notes? There are my notes. I found them now. This one had a little bit of a similar problem that the last one had, which was the lead line, which is supposed to be a fiddle, and it's a synth fiddle, didn't sound authentic, and it sounded cheesy. Now, if that was by intent, and this whole thing was supposed to sound like 8-bit game audio, then it would be okay. So yeah, if this was, instead of like Mario Brothers, it was, Leprechauns racing or something, and you needed, it had that old gamey look to the game, and you wanted an old 8-bit sound. This would be pretty cool for that. If that's not the case, then the biggest problem, the singular problem that this piece had, was that the audio sounded very 8-bit Casio. It didn't sound like good modern high quality samples. So if it was supposed to be real sounding, didn't quite get there. Melodically, compositionally, sounded Irish, sounded Celtic. But sometimes you can take stuff, even if it was like B minus sounds, and you overdubbed. I don't know what the Irish drums are that look like a big tambourine, and I think you play them with a hand or a little stick, and overdub something like that, or a couple of other instruments that are real. The brain naturally gravitates toward those. I don't know what that's called, but it absolutely works, where the brain will latch on to the real stuff and hide the fact that other samples are not that great sounding. However, there were so many samples in this one that were clearly synthesized that even if you overdubbed a couple of real instruments on top of it, I don't think they could save the day. All that said, again, please forgive me, but if this was intended to be an 8-bit sounding piece, great job. If it was not, you got some work to do on the synth sounds, okay? But compositionally, once again, not too shabby. So there you go. Next one is called Keeping Cool. All right, I know it looked like I was distracted, but I wasn't. Bria was.
Okay.
It was me distracting her. Okay, so a bodhran, that's the thing that I was trying to think of for the last piece. So this last one that we just heard, believe it or not, I actually had formed my opinion in about the first 20 seconds and then reconfirmed my opinion as I was listening to it throughout, which was I totally get the vibe. It was kind of cool, like, one of those like soul DJs late at night on one of those shows where the DJ's sitting in the radio station burning incense, talking in a Lou Rawls kind of voice, which I certainly cannot do. And it had that vibe. I feel like it didn't take it far enough. It wasn't really committed to the like sultry, smoky, soulful vibe. It was the right idea, and it was like 80 to 90% of the way there. Could have used more bottom end if I remember correctly. And overall, the sounds on it, put it this way, there are some instances, some libraries that would sign it. There are some instances where it could get used as is. If it were up against a similar cue done by somebody who took it to the A level, it would not shine in comparison. So, that's something to remember for just about anything, which is almost anybody who doesn't get a forward from Taxi or doesn't get something picked up by a library could go, well, I got that into another library or it got used in a show. All depends on the circumstance. And there are libraries that have a lot of not terrible stuff, but not A-level stuff in them, not A-plus level stuff in them. And the stuff does get used. So, you can make that decision. I'm going to go for the B+y, A-y stuff and get a lot of it out there in a bunch of B+y libraries and make a little bit of money doing that. And it's personally, emotionally satisfying. Hey, I got a cue. I got something signed. To be, to join that club of our members that are making six-figure incomes, they don't put out stuff that's B+. So if you're already this far down the road, go for the A+. And whoever that person was, I believe is a gentleman, you're close enough to it that it wouldn't take much to take it to A+. And again, better sounding sounds. That's really what it comes down to. It doesn't necessarily mean more expensive. It just means, like for the electric piano sound, maybe more of a, what's the word? Not phase shift, but you know what I'm talking about. Just make it sound silkier, smoother, little more honey drip from the monitors for this kind of thing. Anyway, not shabby at all, just could be better. Next one is called Let It Breathe. I'm going to mention this while it's rolling. Where's the bottom end? All right, I am not an expert on EDM. I'm not an expert on house. I'm not an expert on a lot of the stuff that the kids listen to today. But something to remember is when our screeners who are working on a film, can you check the AC? I think it might have gone off again. When the screeners are working on a film TV thing, we don't necessarily put somebody, let me find a way to say this. If we had somebody who is an EDM expert on the record side of the industry and we put them to work on a listing that was for EDM for film and TV, they would forward less stuff and have a less good end result than a screener who is film and TV literate and isn't qualified as an EDM expert. Now, the reason we would probably make that decision and assign the film and TV person to it is they understand what works in film and TV versus they're not looking for, wow, that's the best EDM I've ever heard. They're looking for, that would absolutely get used in a TV show or a movie because it would work well in a scene. So there's a difference there. So even though I am not a qualified EDM expert, that was done a little bit more like a record. I kept listening to it going, okay, that's good, that's inventive, I like that, that's consistent with the genre. Had many, many, many good attributes. On the film and TV side, the middle eight or the breakdown got pretty busy. Probably too busy to use for a lot of stuff. But the first thing I mentioned is probably the most important thing, which is the bottom end. And I have a feeling that it was maybe a stereo bass part. Something was out of phase, and that is my guess, because there was bottom in there, but it was really hard to hear it. It was like there was so much inaudible sub bass going on or something. And I know, yes, I'm listening, I'm looking at my beautiful Audio Technica mic over here, and the stuff is coming out of speakers through a microphone. But you guys can tell, even though this is how we work, you can tell when there's not enough bottom in something, and I saw people commenting. So even if I had cranked up the bass on the stereo, it still would have been weird. Something's wrong with the bottom end. You know, a lot of times people are listening to music going, I can't figure it out, I can't figure it out. Nobody thinks about phase anymore because stuff isn't done in mono. We don't have recording consoles typically in home studios with a mono button on them. Back in my day when we used to ride dinosaurs to work, you literally had a mono button on your console, and when you had a mix going and you were pretty darn close, you would hit the mono button because that would cancel any phase cancellation. Just makes things drop out. Let's say you had a beautiful stereo guitar, you hit the mono button and that guitar is like 80% gone. Okay, I've got a phase issue. So my guess is that it was a phase issue on that. Other than that, I think it was true to the genre. It felt good. It was kind of uplifting, emotionally uplifting, which is always good. Emotionally uplifting stuff gets a lot of usages. So there you go. That's what I think.
A lot of people are saying they don't think that it's EDM.
Oh, well, what would you call it? Not house. I don't know. Give me a genre. Anything with a kick drum is EDM to an old fart like me. I'm reading through the things really quickly. Nobody, almost more like smooth jazz. I don't know if I'd go with smooth jazz on that. Electronic easy listening. I don't know. I don't know. Electronica maybe. What?
I personally agree with EDM.
Yeah. Bria says it was EDM. Future bass, EDM like dramedy. Yeah, they don't have charts for EDM like dramedy. When you speak to people in the industry, you do have to use some sort of identifier that's common enough that people know about it. But in any case, it could have been future bass, although future bass, to my memory, and again, I'm not an expert on that. Somebody says future bass minus the bass. Now, that was funny. Is future bass that happy? Because that piece was pretty happy. I mean, not like over the top happy, but pretty happy. Glitch hop, I don't know. I've heard the name or the genre glitch hop, but I don't know. But there wasn't anything glitching in it, was there? No. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Well, the next one better be EDM because it's called EDM Yeah. Let's have a listen. Down, 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 down. can hear the bottom just fine on this one, right? Same microphone, same monitors. Run for it, it's the cops. All right. Excellent example. And some people are going, well, was that an instrumental or a cue? Because, cues are instrumentals. And instrumentals are different than cues in that they're generally a little longer and maybe structured more like a song and less like typical cue structure, which is like A, B, maybe a second section of B, and then A, all the way out to the end again. This was definitely more like an instrumental, but just beautifully executed. I thought it was great. Any library would say yes to that, would be my guess. I could hear all kinds of different scenes that would be used in. My only comment about that thing, it's just personal opinion, the part where the police arrived felt like it was too long, but it was intentionally long so that you were waiting for it. It's Kira come, nope, we're tricking you, it's going on twice as long, and then boom, here's the payoff. So I think it was done intentionally, and maybe I'm just old school and felt like the cops should have arrived sooner and busted those kids. Anyway, and I'm not sure if the title, because it's parenthetically says EDM, like YA. So I don't know if the EDM was, hey, heads up, Lasco, this one's EDM, so that I get the genre correct, or if it's actually titled that, to make it easier for the libraries. By the way, there are one or two people on the Taxi forum that keep calling the people who own and or run music libraries, they call them librarians. If you ever use the phrase librarian in the music industry, nobody will think you're actually in the music industry. the people who work at music libraries are not called librarians. Now, music libraries, there are music libraries at your local library, and maybe those people are called librarians, but not the people who work in the real music industry. So just setting you straight on that one, because I don't want you to look like you're inexperienced. Next one is called They're Comin'. I want to point out, can you go back 10 seconds? I want to point out something that's really well done in this. Hear that stuff, it almost sounds like somebody talking. Right? But it's not talking. It adds to the overall vibe of the cue. It's not so loud that it distracts you. It adds to the texture of it. Really good. A plus. That was really well executed. Everything about that. Atmospheric, ambient, clearly a drone. Lack of any cohesive melody, which is what you want in a drone most of the time. Very textural, very emotionally evocative. I mean, it was intended to set you on edge and get you ready to be scared, create some tension, but it doesn't like horror film you to death, you know, with like a knife coming through the shower curtain. Clearly the title was They're Coming, which is really good. I mean, anybody that looks at that title would go, okay, I see what you know what you're going to hear, and the composer delivered it. So A plus, really, really, really good job on that. Okay, the next one, wow, these guys might have hung out together when they worked on their titles. This one's called Don't Look Back. Oops, can you pause it for a second? Roger,
Level.
huh?
Level.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, remember, I flunked French 101 4 years in a row. Leroux?
I would guess that's about.
Okay. Ask the question. So drones are okay with sound effects? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, most of the time, sound effects are put in by the post mixer, okay, the sound effect editor. And if you're dropping sound effects in, especially sound effects that are legitimately sound effects versus sound design. Okay, there's a difference between sound effects and sound design. Sound design would be that little things sound like little gremlins talking. There was a hint of that. But it wasn't something like a buzz saw coming in, or a tornado flying by, or horse hooves running by. Those are sound effects, and those are like, what the hell? I can't use this now. It's got horses in it, and this is a space thing. But those little gremlins, as it were done executed so well that they were part of the fabric of the whole piece. I just thought that piece was perfection. Okay, sorry to the person on Don't Look Back. Here we go again. Notice you can hear the bottom end of this even though it's in a higher register. Hear that? Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. You just lost yourself a placement on that. Okay, now Lasco's getting mean. You know why? You interrupted my goat looking time. I was sitting here looking at my goat, future goat. No, I was actually thinking about the goat because we talked about the goat last week and you guys were talking about goats today. That cue on the whole was really, really good. Really well done. I liked everything about it. I actually made a note that said, feels like freedom. It actually just felt like, like, wow, this is the rest of my life coming at me, or me chasing after it, or running out in the field with my fingertips going through those beautiful golden flowers as I run. That'll never happen in my lifetime, but it felt free, it felt good, it felt uplifting. And then we got in that wah, 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 wah. Can you play like the last 20, 30 seconds again, please? Okay, now, thanks. Compositionally, it's fine. It's cool. If you were making a record, you totally do that. But all of a sudden, that thing shows up and makes the listener go, huh? What? You just got my attention. the job of music in the context of a TV show or film, most of the time, not 100% of the time, but most of the time, general rule of thumb is it supports an emotion. It's wallpaper, it's texture. Sometimes it's the star of the scene, but not often. And all of a sudden, when that thing, it reminded me, I immediately saw a guy standing at the top of one of our palm trees in our backyard chopping off the fronds with a chainsaw. It reminded me of that. Now, not everybody watching a show today has a palm tree or a guy standing at the top wearing spikes with a chainsaw. Not everybody has a picture of a goat on their phone either. But let's not compare you and me. Let's talk about the song. And the song or the cue just didn't. It's like, why did that need to be in there? That's my point. It was going along so beautifully, perfectly, wonderfully well, and then all of a sudden the dude with the chainsaw showed up. So just take that out and you're good to go. Somebody says just replace that with a paisano playing the same melody. I don't know what
they meant piano. They corrected them.
I was going to say I don't know what a paisano is, but
neither.
let's not get ethnic. There's all these people talking about cultural. What do they call that when you like the girl that wore the Chinese look?
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, cultural appropriation. So yeah, we can't use paisanos as instruments. That's just no longer cool. Anyway, really, really good piece. And Josh Ryan outed himself. Good, Josh. Seriously, it was a great cue. It was just he says, "I'll get rid of the goats." Thank you. All right, moving on. The next one is called "Arm in Arm." What's that thing? It's a shaker. Everything else about this cue is pretty awesome. The shaker sounds like it was played by somebody drinking. I'm sorry, but it's just not on time. I could think of so many funny things to say, but every one of them would be inappropriate. My show would get banned from YouTube. Amanda West says, maybe it's a drinking song, Michael. Aren't they all? For this crowd. Bria was really into it. She's over there smiling. It's like, oh, next song started. Better do something. Okay. I really like that. I thought that it totally created a mood. You could see, the title was Arm in Arm. Yeah, you could see a couple people walking, down a dirt road to go to a swimming hole with some hay sticking out of the dude's mouth. You could see somebody on a back porch. It had a very laid back It felt homey. It really, the main thing most cues are supposed to do is evoke something. This was very evocative of a lot of good stuff, happy stuff, peaceful stuff, warm, fuzzy, all that stuff. I wrote down that it was lazy, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was like a lazy day cue. The texture, the sonic texture of the guitar ain't gonna win any Grammy Awards for engineering, but it was perfect, 100% perfect for this cue. And that brings up a really good point, which is you're not always trying to be a Grammy-winning engineer with every instrument. Sometimes instruments shouldn't have a lot of top end on them, even though an acoustic guitar might normally. Rolled off in the context of a cue like this, it just makes it feel peaceful, lazy, warm, inviting. Felt inviting. I love the vibe. I love the feel. The shaker. Don't ever go to Shaker Heights, Ohio, because it will throw you out. The shaker. You just try. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't think this was cut with a click track, and the timing was a little sloppy at times, but in the context of what this cue did, it added to the authenticity of it until you added the shaker, and then you went, okay, so the timing on the cue is a little sloppy, and the shaker just sounded like somebody who'd never played a shaker before. I'm sorry, I really don't mean to hurt your feelings. The cue overall was good, and it was really sweet, and you could do like an entire collection of 10 or 20 cues in that general vein, and they would probably get picked up. But please, dear God, don't put that shaker in there. There you go. Okay, next one is called You Don't Need to Know Everything, and I'm living proof of that, right? Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to retitle that and call it short, because it was. How long was that?
54 seconds.
Okay, so that's a little short. I mean, yeah, there are cues out there, in the wild that are probably a minute long, but that's definitely on the short end of cue land. Really nice sounding. Marion Lair says, "Don't tear paper on the mic." You're right. I like the acoustic guitar sound. I like the vibe. I don't even know what you call that when you play a chord with like a thumb and 2 or 3 fingers. I like that. It's all done on one acoustic guitar. Okay, so George just outed himself. It was all done on one acoustic guitar. It's mine. So George, good job overall. Make it 90 seconds just to be safe. The ending felt like, oh, I better end it, and you did. So the ending didn't feel like it had purpose. It didn't feel like it resolved back to where it should have gone. I mean, note-wise, I think it did resolve back to the root, right? I'm just reading everybody's comments. But yeah, basically, actually, Bria, can you play me like the middle 20 seconds of that, please? Now I know what I was going to say, which is I think that you and the gentleman who worked on the last one went to the same school of percussion, because both of you guys are just, I wrote down that it was actually arrhythmic or polyrhythmic or some kind of rhythmic, but it just felt like that the percussion wasn't locking to the track and it was a distraction. But I could see where you're going with the cue, and your intent, and all that stuff was working for you, but the percussion was loud enough, and even if you made it softer, it would still pull away the listener's attention or the groove. Not a rhythmic. That's Peter Rahill's new word for the day is not a rhythmic. Linda Cullum says contrapunta. I've been there. It's in Costa Rica somewhere. I think it's on the Atlantic side. Okay. Oh no, that was Punta Gorda. That's in Florida, west coast of Florida. Really good snook fishing there. So that's it for that one. Moving on to the next one, which is called Classical Duo. Okay, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm glad we're hearing a lot of this organic stuff today because you know what? I think organic cues don't get enough love, and these last three reminded me of they can make you feel kind of good and they can be really special. I would retitle this one. I don't know what I would call it, but not classical duo because that doesn't really tell you anything. I mean, yeah, it was two classical guitars playing a piece, but it doesn't really tell us anything about the mood. And I'd have to think about the mood for a second, but I don't know. All I know is I liked it. There were a few times where the timing between the two parts got a little sloppy, and at first I was thinking, that's okay. It adds humanity, adds realism, adds authenticity. And then shortly after I had that thought, it's like, Michael, don't be over picky. Sometimes a little imperfection is what makes it wonderful. And then it got a little too imperfect, like a bar later. It's like, whoa, that one was just a little far out there. Anyway, I really, really like that piece. I encourage you to do more of those. Think about what that piece of music makes you feel like, because you want to give it a title that makes it easy for an editor or a music supervisor to know what they're going to hear. And classical makes us think of, some dude with a white wig sitting down at a harpsichord, because that's the only kind of classical music I listen to in my car on the freeway during rush hour. Anyway, yeah, that was, yes, it's classical technically, but there's got to be a better way to describe it. All right, moving on. We're going to be done early today. Yay. Scam Nation. Let's have a listen. Okay, that one was state of the art. That was an A plus plus. I'm outing the composer. I don't even know if she's in the chat today, but that was Patty Boss, who I know. She's been on a panel or two at the Road Rally over the years. She's been around Taxi for a long time. She's doing a lot of stuff right, and that is a really great example of that kind of cue. And that cue was, Paul House says, I'd say that was bang on. I agree. Um, I made a laundry list of notes. Tension cue, but there are different kinds of tension cues, just so you guys know. But that was a form of tension cue. It was kind of like an atmospheric drone bottom with tension cue layered on top of it. Great sectional contrast, great developmental arc, meaning that it always felt like it was going someplace without leaving where it was, if you know what I mean. Great mix. There's nothing I would change on the mix. Had tons of great edit points. Oh, and I could envision a myriad number of scenes that could be used for, especially CSI type stuff. You know, any of the procedural cop shows would be great for. What was the title on this one? Was Scam Nation. So you could. I mean, I like Scam Nation. It may be a little narrow descriptively for this, but it could certainly work in the context of like Greed and Scoundrels or whatever it is on MSNBC or CNBC. They have the shows about, the people who abscond with millions of dollars. I mean, it could certainly be used for that kind of thing. Anyway, just that was perfection. Great job, Patty. Really, really, really proud of you for that. Moving on. This one's called Angel Mermaid, which I already like it. It already gets an A just for the title because our CFO is Angel, and my daughter Hannah's favorite thing in the world for years was a mermaid, Ariel. Hannah just sent a picture the other day of herself wearing a t-shirt with little shells strategically placed on the t-shirt, and it just made me want to sing, what was the Ariel song?
Part of your world.
That one, Part of Your World. But I opted not to because I didn't want to embarrass myself. Anyway, let's have a listen to Angel Mermaid. sound effects. All right. Let's try a little experiment. Go back anywhere in the middle, play 10 seconds, and I'm going to turn it way down, and we're going to all have a revelation together. Okay, so let's assume this beautiful piece of music, which it is, really well executed, is being played, because it's not a cue, it's an instrumental, but it would be used in a scene. Oh gosh, what was the movie with Michael Douglas a million years? Romancing the Stone. Man and woman, on vacation somewhere or up to no good somewhere, and they're in somewhere in South America, and they're having a dinner at a restaurant, and this is playing in the background, which is what it would do. Of course, this section doesn't have it. Anyway, my point being, I don't even know if you guys can hear this or not. Peter Rahill in Colombia. Yeah, there you go. Yep, all you can hear is the clicks. I love that part on the guitar. Okay, anyway, you can kill it, please. So that was the point, is even though I do understand that that type of music would have that percussion, and probably at that level, in the context of getting used in a scene, if they had this piece, which was really well played, melodically, compositionally really well done, the playing was executed beautifully, everything about it worked, but that percussion in the context of getting used in the background of a restaurant scene, or just about any scene that it might be used in, would just be distracting. One of those, So I'm not even sure what that was. Was it a bongo drum with a finger muting the skin? I don't think it was claves. Didn't sound. Somebody said they thought it was claves. I don't think so. What?
It sounded like someone doing percussion on the guitar.
It could have been.
Hitting the guitar.
Yeah, it could have been fingernails on the body of the guitar. I'll never have to worry about that because I bite mine. Not that you really cared to know that, right? Okay, the next one. Oh, by the way, the title on it, last one, Angel Mermaid. Cool title for my daughter in her t-shirt with the seashells. Not so cool for this because it had nothing to do with angels or mermaids, really, unless the lyrics were all about that. Oh no, there weren't any lyrics. So, Cartagena Nights. If the title were, A Night in Cartagena, you would go, I know what that sounds like, right? But Angel Mermaid doesn't sound like that. Okay, next one is called Presentiment or Presentiment. Oh, that'd be a good name for like a breath mint, Presentiment. Makes your breath more presentable. Let's have a listen. I love looking at the comments in the chat room, seeing how good you guys have become at identifying things. Um, Very Middle Earth, very Lord of the Ringsy kind of. Very, it could be very Space Odyssey ish. I liked many aspects of this. I like the textures. I love the layering. I love the fact that it made you feel stuff. Made my deodorant work a little bit more. My palms got a little sweaty. But the only thing, and it's an easily fixable negative, was there were times where it felt like the section, it was pretty drone like, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, there's something new. And I went, okay, that would make it a little harder for an editor to use this because they can't line up that change. That change may not work in their story or in their scene. But the sections between the changes were very long, and that makes it more usable. So it may not be such an issue. But yeah, I thought that was a great job. I saw that Vicky outed herself at some point. Great job, Vicky. Um, oh yeah, I made two notes: Lord of the Rings and score. It felt like a score because it had different scenes in it, and if it were two picture and two of those scenes, it would make sense. On its own, for an editor to try and use it, they might be going, "Oh, I could use that section." So yeah, it was usable. You could make it more usable by not having all those scenes within. So there you go. And now, ladies and gentlemen, nope, wrong sound effect on that box. We are on the last one. And this one is called EDM Summer 2016. Let's just talk about that title for a second. EDM Summer 2016. So you're a music supervisor and you're working on a film that takes place in Germany, and a couple of spies are meeting at a club at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's lasers and a mirror ball and flashy lights and a bunch of people wearing leather, and it's very dark in there, and then you're looking for something that sounds like it would be played in that club, and you come to EDM Summer 2016. I would skip it. And I'm not a jerk. Well, at least I'm not, not in the context of this show. I'm not being a jerk. And I could say with almost 100% certainty, because nothing is ever 100%, but with a great deal of certainty that most editors, most music supervisors would just go, rookie title, and that doesn't tell me anything. Well, you do know it's EDM. So that said, just work on the title, and let's have a listen to EDM Summer 2016. Sounds like a German club, right? Yay. Um, I liked it melodically. Um, it it was cool, but it had the same problem. I think the first thing we listened to in the show today was the one that was missing the bottom end. This thing needed so much more kick drum and so much more bass. It would have made it an A. Instead, it was like a C plus waiting to be an A. So, you're if the composer is in the room anywhere, I hope you're listening and you're close. You're in the ballpark. You have totally the right idea. It's just, I don't know what you're mixing. I mean, it literally sounded to me like there wasn't a bass part even in there anywhere. So there you go. Just add kick drum like that and bass like boom, boom. A nice rubber bandy bass would be really cool on that. Not, a poofy synth bass, but something. What's the song? Who's the woman that did All About the Bass? All About That Bass?
Megan Trainor.
What's her other song? The one where she's in her bedroom in her cute little jammies dancing around.
Oh,
We used it as a reference recently.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I do too, but I don't know. Bree is looking something up for me.
It's like something about loving herself, I think.
Yeah, right. It's like a female empowerment thing with. Yeah, go to. Are you on YouTube?
Me too.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
the
so.
one
Are you on
with-
YouTube?
Yeah, I can be.
Yeah, can you play it on YouTube?
You give me a sec.
Of course, they're gonna say you used copyrighted.
Oh. Yeah, it's just.
Okay, listen to the bass in this, and that's high register.
Who's that sexy thing I see over there? That's me, standing in the mirror. What's that icy thing hanging around my neck? That's gold. Show me some respect. Oh, I thank God.
Of course, there's no bass here.
that I woke up feeling this way, and I can't help loving myself, and I don't need nobody else. Nuh-uh. If I was you, I'd wanna be.
Anyway, you can kill it. That's the bass sound I'm looking for in that last. Can you go back to that last cue they were listening to and play me like 10 seconds of it? And that was actually in a higher register than I imagined. I hear a kick drum in there. I keep waiting for the bass. Do you hear a bass part? There's a bass slide. Anyway, yeah, it needs bass, and I think that kind of, I call it a rubber band bass sound, would sound really good on that. So there you have it, folks. I am actually not going to be here for the next 2 Mondays. I got to be out of the office. So Bria and Tom are going to do one of those Mondays, and then we're going to take a summer hiatus, just like the people in real TV land for the other Monday. Do you guys know if you're doing a week from today or 2 weeks from today? She has no idea. These kids today, they never plan ahead for anything. Anyway, we will be back, and I already scheduled somebody or booked somebody for the show 3 weeks from now, and I didn't write it in my book. So somebody's going to show up and go, what are we doing for the show? I don't even know who it is now. I don't really know who it is to reach out to. But we'll have a good time. And don't forget, the Taxi Road Rally coming up November 1st through the 4th in beautiful Los Angeles, California. You have to be a member to come, but if you're a taxi member, you get 2, count them, 2 free tickets. 1 for you, 1 for a guest. Don't forget, right there. Subscribe. Hit the subscribe thing down in the corner. Like us. Share us. And one other thing I wanted to tell you. I don't know. Whatever. We're out of here. It's 5:31. Oh no, I'm a minute over. See you guys in a couple of weeks. Thanks for watching the big show. Thanks for sending in that great music. Have a good time. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Now that's got